Another day, another disc, and there are only 2 discs left in this collection. So let's get cracking straight away, shall we? With Blood Creature, more commonly known as Terror is a Man. This is a 1959 American/Filipino body horror film, directed by Gerardo de Leon, going here under the name Gerry de Leon. Now this is part of the Blood Island quadrilogy, which is not something I'm aware of, and none of the films sound familiar either, but they all have something to do with being set on Blood Island. So let's have a look and see what this Blood Creature's all about then, shall we?
No, thank you.
You sure? Say, what is aku aku?
I see you must have been talking to Tiago, huh?
Yes, he gave me this.
Yeah, that's an aku aku. It's a sort of good luck charm. More than it.
So the review for this film is going to be a little bit different to all my other reviews. I can't really talk about it how I usually would. And that's because the film, as it's presented on this disc, is pretty much unwatchable. So the main issue, the reasoning behind that, is that the first 20 minutes or so are just completely out of sync, and I'm talking massively out of sync here. You've got about a 15-minute delay. The audio is from later in the film and the visuals are from earlier, and none of it makes any sense. And then suddenly, after just under 20 minutes, the video just catches up mid-sentence and suddenly it's back and it's in sync. And this is only a 72-minute long film, so watching this I had pretty much the first act of the film completely missing. And yeah, I still watched the entire thing. So my theory behind this, why is it like this, I'm wondering. My theory is that, so this film is about 15-20 minutes shorter than is advertised on the back of the case. If both of these films had been full, if they'd been the runtime that they advertised, you'd have got pretty much about 3 hours worth of footage on one disc, and I know that DVDs struggle with that sort of thing. Look at the DVD release of It, for example. You had to turn that over halfway through, just so the quality was still good and so you could get 3 hours worth of a film on one disc. But you had to flip that. These, they're all on the same side. So my theory is they suddenly went, oh shit, we've got too much film for DVD here. So they chopped out a chunk of footage from this film, moved it up, and then got rid of the beginning bit of audio. Why they'd do that, I have no idea, and if they actually did do that, who knows, that's just my speculation. But either way, this is definitely the worst thing we have seen in this entire collection so far, and it does unfortunately render this film pretty much unwatchable.
I'm sorry.
Is one of them the boy's mother, Tiago's?
Yes. She was our servant. Her name was Alicia. She was killed the first time the animal escaped. She was the first one.
Luckily the plot was pretty straightforward for this one, so even after missing a big chunk of it, I did still manage to catch up. It's basically just a retelling of The Island of Dr. Moreau, with a mad scientist in this one turning a panther into a man as opposed to the other way around. It actually seemed pretty decent, honestly, which makes this whole thing even more of a massive shame. The acting was alright, and the pacing maybe a little slow, but not necessarily boring, just more of a casual pace. The panther design seemed pretty interesting as well, even if we didn't see too much of it. It just seemed like a half-decent mad scientist body horror film, really. Just completely ruined by an incompetent release company, I guess. Maybe the worst issue we've seen, but definitely not the worst film. And honestly, I think with the issues, that's all I can say on this one. So let's move on to the next. Okay, time for some Werewolf. Werewolf in a Girls Dormitory is a 1961 Italian horror film directed by Paolo Hirsch, going under the name Robert Benson, and he hasn't really done much of anything except being the casting director for Caligula. How weird is that? Now, I haven't watched a werewolf film since I did my Vipco review of Werewolf of Washington. Which is not a good sign. Let's hope this film is better than this one.
Aren't you forgetting, Mary, that you have the letters? The letters. When you give them to me, I'll free you.
They're burned. Remember, they're important proof. Very important. So careful.
The film is about a girls' reform school. A new teacher rocks up and a girl is mysteriously killed by what appears to be a wolf. So the characters, very slowly, discuss what could be the true cause before another attack happens. This film is very dull. It just feels drawn out and the plot is incredibly bare bones, even though it's only got an 83-minute runtime. There's no threat or action, it is just people slowly discussing stuff. By about 30 minutes in, I was pretty much done with it, and it never picks up. Even its climactic ending scene feels drawn out.
So Walter was the monster.
No. He couldn't be the monster.
But why not?
Because Walter had a dog.
We get some funny dubbing and acting here and there, but more than anything, it just feels like it's very drawn out and elongated with very strange pauses. And the characters themselves, they're one note, and you can't really latch on to any of them. The werewolf is, unfortunately, kind of generic and feels kind of uninspired, and you barely see it as well. As for the way it's shot and the score, they're all very by the books, and once again, uninspired. Just one boring set.
It's necessary to have a second injection.
I know.
Oh, darling, please, let us finish the cure now.
No. Better that you leave me like this.
Okay, time for the prints. So obviously, Blood Creature is ruined by the sinking issue, but outside of that, the print itself is absolutely awful. It's barely watchable, and by the end, it's just a staticky, dark mess. It pops and flickers every now and again. It skips frames completely, and the sound is just awful. Just a massive shame, because as I've said earlier, this film could have been good. Werewolf in a Girls Dormitory is the better of the two prints, but it's not good. It's slightly clearer, but it's still covered in dirt and grain, and it flickers from time to time, and the sound is so badly compressed, and it pops all the time. Just an awful set of prints on this disc.
That's a bad bruise, Selena. Where did you get that?
It's nothing.
Who did that to you, Selena?
No one.
Pereira?
No.
Now for the case, and we're back again with spelling issues. Here they put impassionate instead of impassioned, which massively changes the context of the sentence. And here we've got monstrous instead of monstrous. And lastly, they put Gerry de Lion instead of Gerry de Leon. Those are spelling errors, but also the run times are off with this one too, with Blood Creature actually only being 72 minutes, and Werewolf being 83 minutes. And on the disc, it's all fine, same as usual. But I have found something out. So now, some of you may remember on the Track of the Vampire and Nightmare Castle episode of this series, Track of the Vampire had this really weird border around it for a few minutes. Well, thanks to Blood Creature, I figured out what the whole image is. As you can see here, at the beginning of Blood Creature, there's this image of a drive-in theatre with the film playing inside. The film then zooms out and fills the screen. As you can see now, the image and the border line up. So clearly they just forgot to add the animation to Track of the Vampire. Some very shoddy work, but now at least we can put that mystery to bed. Overall though, this has got to be the worst disc in the entire collection so far. One film that looks like it could be promising, but absolutely butchered by dripping blood, and another that pretty much had me falling asleep. Now, I can't actually recommend Blood Creature because I didn't see all of it, but it does look like there might be something there. If it looks interesting to you, I'd say maybe check it out. Or maybe check out The Island of Dr. Moreau. Werewolf in a Girls Dormitory, I would say avoid at all costs. It is a massively dull mess. Instead, I'd recommend Universal's The Wolfman, a classic, or maybe even Ginger Snaps, way more entertaining than this piece of shit. So it's that time again. Why are these two films on the same disc? What draws them together? This one, maybe kind of obvious, but I like how it sounds. Mad Doctors and Man Beasts. So, very disappointing this week, and next episode we're going to be watching the last disc in the entire collection. We're going to be checking out Screaming Skull and the Werewolf vs. Vampire Woman.